to the Ironworks live stream. We're talking about center punching for dummies today. If you're looking, and we do tons of center punching in this shop, this is all the back plates that we make for towel bars, toilet paper holders, all of that stuff. We do this decorative thing. Well, you wouldn't think that that's a hard thing to do, but what nobody understands is a lot of this material is not exactly the dimension that it says it is. Some of it gets a little wider, some of it's a little narrower. And so getting your holes centered up on your back plates can be challenging. So the easiest way I found to do this is to use a divider or a scribe. Okay, so this is just a set of dividers that I actually forged, and I just taped what they call a silver streak onto this divider compass. Now, what's a silver streak, you ask? Well, a silver streak is a mechanical pencil that's got this special, very expensive lead in it. And it's not really lead, it's some kind of a paint or something. What a lot of people don't know about these is on the inside of the little plunger, there's a sharpener. Can you see that all right? Is that coming in close? So you can see how dull that is? Well, you can run this over the top of this, and you can run this sharpener that's on the inside of this over this, and you can get a very, very fine line. Now we're doing blacksmithy stuff, so we don't have to have. We're not building NASA components, so I don't generally worry about it too much. But if you really have to have a really fine center line, that's an easy way to do it. This is a great tool. The other thing you can use is a carbide scribe. This is a piece of carbide, super duper duper sharp. Let me grab one of the tools here. So this is a half round file. This is probably the most used file in this shop. If you don't have one of these, you need to get one if you're doing this blacksmithing thing. So an easy way to scribe these is I will use a piece of soapstone like that. You need a really, really fine line, like you really are trying to get your center punch really, really accurate. It actually cuts. Can you hear that? It cuts through the mill scale. So that makes a super duper fine line. Okay, you can get almost the same kind of a line if you learn how to sharpen your silver streak. These silver streaks are very expensive. I think the last one I bought was $12, so you don't want to wash them, which is what I do. They end up in the washing machine regularly at this shop. So let's see here. I'll try to do a nice fine line with a freshly sharpened silver streak. So you can get a fairly good line with that. Okay, but for us doing these back plates like we do here, I don't ever measure anything because that's the part of the blacksmithing deal. So what I do is I will set this approximately half the width of this. Now you can see I did sharpen that up just for you guys. I sharpened that silver streak up. So you go, and the great thing about this is you don't have to be exact. You can go, I'm going to run that there, I'm going to run that there, and then I'm going to flip this around. And I'm going to run it here, and I'm going to run it here. Well, now you know your center punch has to be in between those two lines someplace. Now if you want to get really anal about it, then you can set your divider to the center if that's what you want to do. And that's how good that stuff sticks. I can still see it even after and it's actually, it will stay in the forge. You can actually, that stuff, if you don't get it too hot, your forge too hot, it will actually stay hot on the forge. So we're going to put 2 holes in this. So we're going to run it here, run it here, run it here, run it here. And then I set the width. I generally set my holes about a ½ inch off of the end. So I'm just going to measure that, like that. We're going to go this way. So I know that center punch mark has to be between those 2 lines and on that line, between those 2 lines and on that line. Okay. So center punches come in all shapes and sizes. I have 3 here. So these 2 are factory-made center punches.
I have a question.
Oh, what's the question?
Where did you pick up soapstone? Let me read the rest of it. It's burnt mushroom blacksmithing. Where did you pick up soapstone? Our local Ace Hardware and our TSC don't have it. Might have to order online.
Yeah, you can get it on eBay, but I get it at a welding supply shop. Almost every town of any size is going to have a welding supply store, or like a gas store where you get bottled gas at, like for your welders and stuff like that. If you just Google welding supply stores in your area, I guarantee you'll come up and you'll be able to get packages of it. Okay, so and that's a great thing. So soapstone, right? These come in all different kinds. This is the cheaper version of this. Like this with this is $3. This is $12. So of course this is what most pipeliners use. The bad part about it is as you use it, they get dull. It's just like a piece of chalk. Well, the old pipeliner way of sharpening this soapstone is to use a file. You just run that soapstone down the file like that at an angle. And after you do it a little bit, you'll decide what angle you like the best. And that'll give you a nice sharp soapstone. That way you can get a fine line, you can get a fairly fine line with it. Let's see, I'll show you. We'll go around here and I'll show you the line. We'll compare the lines. You want to lay the flat that you created against your square. And that's how that works, right? Something like that. Okay, so center punches. So this is a hard punch to center punch with because it's a very acute angle in the end of the center punch. I find it's much harder to center this center punch up because when you're laying this in here and you're trying to put this on like this, it's hard to see it because they kind of get shiny and you kind of lose the point on your center punch. This one's really round. Now, of course, you can take them to a grinder. You can take them to your 4.5-inch grinder and sharpen them up. This is one that I made. Now, what do you notice about mine versus the factory ones? Mine's a lot shorter. I find it's much easier to get the center punch centered with a shorter, more sharply shaped center punch. Okay? And did you see how I did that? I laid that where I want it and then I rock it up. Now, if you're doing very fine work, you're center punching bigger drill bits, like these are a 7/32 hole. Okay, so not that big of a deal. It works fine with this center punch. But if you're doing bigger holes, your center punch has to be wider, or else your drill bit will skip out of your center punch hole. And I'm going to show you this right here. So we're going to come over here, and I'm going to do it right here instead of on the anvil face. So I'm going to rock this back in, decide where I want it, hold it down, and give this one sharp rap. Okay, that's one sharp rack. Well, on a big drill bit, let me go get it. And this is overkill. But a lot of times on a very sharp, small center punch hole, this drill bit won't catch it in the drill press or in your drill, and it'll walk out of here. Well, that's where, if you're doing that kind of work, you have to use a wider center punch. Okay, so that will keep your drill bit from walking out of your center punch hole. Okay. Like I said, you see which one I use. I find it's a lot easier to hold your center punch where you want it if you have a shorter punch. It's not walking around on you. It's much easier to hold this shorter punch. Now these punches, if you don't have the ability to make your own center punches like I do, you can cut them off. You just use a chop saw. Because that very well could be hardened steel clear up to there. So you can't just take it over to a bandsaw or hacksaw. Well, you might be able to. You can either take the temper out of them, but you got to be kind of careful because you don't want to take the temper out of this end. So there's the center. So there's our center punch hole. I'm going to go ahead and do this other end on this one. I'm just going to show you what we're building in here. Right? See how I hold this back? It's really easy to do. Put it where I want it. Rock it in. Give it a tap. So I guarantee that we're pretty fairly centered there. Okay? So I'm going to throw this one in the forge. Oh wait, I'm going to drill it first. Generally, I would do this in the drill press, but I got another project in the drill press. Here's my little drill bits. I'll show you how easy this is if you get a good center hole, a center punch. Find our place, put it in there. Don't wear gloves when you're doing this. Don't wear gloves when you're doing this, because invariably you'll hook the edge of that glove and you will suck your finger around that drill bit. This is 1/8" material. That's the holes that we use. And the great thing about what I'm doing with this back plate is, oh, I got that one off a little bit. Well, it's not that big of a deal because I'm decorating the edge of it up, so it kind of gets hid in the scalloping, and you can't really tell if they're in the center or not. In fact, I might have got this one off this way and this one off this way a little bit. But if you're doing really, really precise work, that's the tool that you want. And you want to make sure that your center punches are sharp. If you don't have a big sander like I do, you can actually use a 4.5" grinder and just hold that up and just roll that center punch in there, and that's a really great way to sharpen them up. Okay, so we're going to throw that in the forge after I countersink it. So I countersink these for a buccal head screw when you're mounting them on a wall or something. And that allows the buccal head of the screw to sit flush down in the. Okay, so while this is heating up, throw that in there. While this is heating up, we'll do one more back plate just so you guys can see what I'm doing there. And of course, there's all kinds of applications that you can use for this. A lot of times I'll get close enough that I won't even have to do 2 lines almost. There, this way. See, I'm way far apart there. So I'll just put it in here like this, and I'll just measure to where I think I'm pretty close. This way. And it doesn't matter if you're on one side of the line or other. See, I was well over halfway there, but see, I got them pretty close there. There. And you can see that even from that end on that little short piece, how far apart these lines are to this one. Then we want to bring them up a 1/2 inch off of them. 1/2 inch. This. And I'm going to use my center punch that I made with the sharper end on it. Over here. Now that's all the center punch I need for those little tiny drill bits that I'm doing. But like again, you might, and I'm sure that you can find a happy medium. But I very much appreciate the shorter, just that extra inch or 1.5 inch shorter center punch. I find this a lot easier to manage than a big long one like these. All right, I'm going to take this up a little bit. So the reason I do these in the order that I do them is now when I put them in the forge, everything's blackened. So I don't have a shiny place on the back plate that's going to show through behind the screw that I put in. That's why I countersink them before I put them in the forge. That's come out of the forge, and you can see you can still see the marks from the silver streak. So that stuff is pretty doggone durable. Let that heat up. So here's one of the little screws that I use. You'll understand. See how nice they fit once you countersink them? It just makes them look just a little more finished. That's why we countersink those, and that's why I use that size of hole. You don't want to have too big of a hole where your screw is waddling out and the bottom of the bugle is bottoming out on the bottom of the hole. You want them to fit like that. Of course, you don't want them tight where you're screwing up the threads going down into the hole when you're putting the screw in.
Someone has a question.
Here's our finished backplate.
So someone said, did I miss what these are going to be used for?
I will show you in just a second what we're using. So these are back plates for toilet paper holders, hat racks. I'll show you one here in a minute. I've got one over here that's finished. Now that's really hot. Here's what we use. Tons and tons of these. Designed for hanging your hats on. This is one of the things that we sell a lot of at the Christmas time around here. So, but that's why, that's the use of those. Like I said, you put that screw in there so when you mount them up, it's just almost perfectly flush. No shiny spot behind. All right, that's center punching for dummies. If you have any questions, you're welcome to leave them in the comments, and we'll get it answered, won't we? Yeah, get it hot and hit it. Always wear safe. If you like the contents, look over Etsy store, Cody Iron. There's a link in the bio. Share some love. You don't have to buy anything. Just go like some stuff. Thanks, everybody.